Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Sunday Roundup of the Relief Valve podcast. You might have known that it isn't Sunday because I ran a little late with getting all of the show together. Again, there's so much news. I've got to figure out what I can and can't run, and what I can get to, or what I've got to move to like later on in the week. So I wanted to start with hello and welcome. First of all, happy Monday. And I hate Mondays. I hate Tuesdays more because for some reason it turns into like Monday part 2. My Monday ends up being fine. It's my Tuesday. This is a shit show. But I wanted to talk about last week's show just briefly. You know, I had a couple of cocktails, couple wobbly pops, as LB from WAF would say, if anyone remembers those old days. Couple of wobbly pops. And the show went off the rails a little bit in last week's show. I referred to a bar in Indiana as tranny-loving faggots. And, you know, I haven't received a strike. I haven't received any complaints or anything like that. But there are some things that are a bridge too far. And I want to hold... This is not a PC show by any stretch of the imagination. But... There is a standard that I want to hold myself to. This is news, opinion, and sarcasm and jokes, and we're having fun with it. And you know, I don't want to go too far with it, right? And then it turns into the KKK podcast, which I do every other weekend. I'm kidding. Okay, guys, it was just a joke. No, I know it was a joke. I'm trying to say that it was a joke. Yeah. Okay, boo yourselves. You boo yourselves, okay?
Liar, whore, and you know it.
Liar, whore, and you know it. That's my newest sound, and I love that one. All right, so I am a liar, whore, and so let's jump into the news here. And we'll get through as much as we possibly can. So we'll start with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Is starting to lead in the Democratic polls as far as the primary is concerned. So Daily Wire reporting here, Democratic presidential candidate Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. said during an interview on Saturday that he opposes allowing biological males to compete against females in women's athletics. RFK Jr., who is surging in Democratic primary polls, amassing nearly 20% support despite only having announced his campaign for president recently, made the remarks during an interview with CNN's Michael Smerconish. Kennedy made his remarks towards the end of the interview during a lightning round. The first question that Kennedy was asked about the feud between Disney and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. DeSantis implemented a state-run board that took away special powers that Disney was given back in the 1960s to govern itself. Privileges that no other company in the state had. I have no comment on that because I just don't know enough about it, Kennedy responded. I've been totally on the sidelines on that. I'm not delving into it. But here's a little bit of that conversation.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Robert, thank you so much for being here. President Biden has a bust of your father in the Oval Office. When you see that, what do you think?
I'm honored by it, and I have a lot of admiration for President Biden for the service that he's given to our country. I've known him; he's been my friend, my close family friend for 40 years. And there's nothing personal about this campaign. I am not going to run a mean-spirited campaign or a personal campaign against President Biden.
And I've just got to say, on a side note, listening to this guy through debates, that's R.F. Kennedy talking right now. Listening to this guy through debates is going to be a chore because he seems like he's one conversation away from just losing the throat completely and just needing that thing that you have to put up to your neck that smokers had, like like that guy in South Park. First, I'd like to say that Joe Biden's a good personal friend of mine, and thank you for having me on the show.
He and I just differ really dramatically.
We differ.
Issues like the war.
Issues like the war.
The control of Wall Street.
Control of Wall Street.
Of our federal government and the pharmaceutical companies, and also the use of fear as a governing.
The use of fear.
I think our country's headed in a bad direction, and that's why I'm running, but not because a lack of personal affection for President Biden.
Is he too old to have a second term?
I don't think age should be a metric for us.
I don't think age should be a metric. All right, so let's go to the end of this. I mean, take me, for example. I'm perfectly fine and in my prime. Great.
Matter of fact, we've gone from 6% of our kids having chronic disease to 54% in 2006. Among those chronic diseases, and we know that they're related, are chemical exposures and pharmaceutical drug exposures, and issues like depression, anorexia, OCD, ADD, ADHD, and all these different neurological injuries. And I think that is the main thing that we need to talk about, and that I will deal with as president, ending the chronic disease epidemic in this country.
And to the people who say, why did you let him say that? Why didn't you confront him with all the data? You would say what?
Show me the data. That's what I love. Show me some
Show me the data. I want to show me the money and show me the data.
That is inaccurate. Show me the scientific study.
Robert Kennedy, thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here. I'm Michael Smerconish, and I look like a moron. All right, I used to listen to that guy years ago. I liked him. Now he's on CNN, and he just looks like this big, wide-eyed dummy, like everyone else on CNN. Okay, moving on. So if anyone hasn't been concerned about all of these banks collapsing, you might want to at least take some notice of it. They're dropping like flies, and now. So J.P. Morgan, if I'm not mistaken, J.P. Morgan ended up buying First Republic. So they've assumed all the debt with help from the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, helping out with some of that purchase. So the taxpayers did end up assisting with that, or to some degree with that purchase. But so let's get into this here. So Federal Reserve just said banks are sound and resilient, but another one might collapse. PacWest stock plummeted as investors remain worried about the financial sector, a decline which occurred despite Federal Reserve officials assuring market actors hours earlier that the banking system is sound and resilient. First Republic Bank imploded on Monday, weeks after Silicon Valley Bank, this was last Monday, and Signature Bank similarly collapsed as account holders with balances above the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC. When you see that sticker on your bank and it says 250,000, it means your funds are insured and guaranteed up to 250,000. So when things like this happen, you will recoup your losses. But if you're a large company or a very wealthy person and you've got more in the bank than that, they do not guarantee more than the 250,000. So now the government has been doing kind of this unprecedented thing where they're guaranteeing people's money back regardless of the amount that they had in there. They did it with the that California bank of SVB. And and now in some of these situations where they're bailing these banks out, these other banks out, they're trying to do the same thing. So, that is taxpayer money getting used. So First Republic Bank imploded on Monday, weeks after Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank similarly collapsed as account holders with balances above the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation threshold at the three medium-sized banks rushed to withdraw their funds. PacWest was among several other regional banks to see stock prices sharply decline earlier this week amid news of the First Republic Bank failure and subsequent sale to J.P. Morgan Chase. I believe the same J.P. Morgan Chase that is supposed to be involved with Jeffrey Epstein. Shares for PacWest, which is based in Beverly Hills, California, and also serves clients in Arizona, Utah, and Texas, declined more than 45% between market close on Wednesday and early morning trading on Thursday. The firm has seen stock prices decrease more than 67% over the past 5 days and nearly 87% since the banking crisis started 2 months ago. Several reports indicate that the PacWest would consider strategic options, such as a sale or a capital raise. The company confirmed in a statement on Wednesday that multiple potential partners and investors have approached executives. The company will continue to evaluate all options to maximize shareholder value. The statement from PacWest noted the bank has not experienced out-of-the-ordinary deposit flows following the sale of First Republic Bank and other news. The decline in PacWest shares came hours after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell insisted at a press conference that the banking system is sound and resilient, even after the tumult in early March and the collapse on Monday. We're committed to learning the right lessons from this episode and will work to prevent events like these from happening again, he said. What are the right lessons? To stop being greedy fucks and mismanaging people's money? Is that the lesson? Because I doubt you learned it. Federal Reserve officials announced a quarter-point target federal funds rate hike on Wednesday afternoon, a tactic which is meant to combat inflationary pressures but often results in constrained economic activity as the cost to borrow funds increases for consumers and businesses. Interest rate hikes contributed to the substantial loss incurred by Silicon Valley Bank as executives liquidated a long-term bond portfolio to cover withdrawals. Assets in the banking system are now $2 trillion lower than their book value as a result of the recent Federal Reserve efforts, according to a study from the analysts at the National Bureau of Economic Research. PacWest saw deposits fall 17% between the end of December and the end of March, from $34 billion to $28 billion, according to a first-quarter earnings report from the company. Other regional banks, such as Western Alliance, saw similar declines. So it ends up being a domino effect. This started with SVB, and now it's Republic, and now there's a couple other, large to mid-range ones that are going as people see the pattern and what's coming. In a mass withdrawal, they all go in, get all of their money out before they lose it. Now, because the bank invests all of your money in order to continue as a business, they don't actually have the full funds, especially if stock prices, government bonds, other things are dropping in value. So they have to sell all those en masse in order to try and reimburse their customers for the amount your account says that you have. And when their investments have lost money, they don't have the money to pay you back. So your account might say you have $100,000 in there. But if you try to pull it all right now, they may not, especially if there is a rush of people, which is what's happening with these banks. A rush of people go and pull all of that money. It's too much at one time. If one person goes, I want my $100,000, I'm leaving, they can give that person all of that money and then just redistribute in other places in order to get their gains back or make up for that one spot. But when you have a fair amount of your customers show up and do that, the banks can't actually cover anymore. They're working with money that they don't have. It's like me being a bank and you ask me to hold on to $1,000 for you, I'm going to make interest for you. Then I go gambling and I lose it. And you go, hey man, can I have my $1,200, whatever you said you were going to turn my $1,000 into? And I'm like, I can't. It didn't work out the way I wanted. I can't pay you. So this is what's happening with some of these customers now with the banks collapsing so much. So now, in my opinion, what we're going to see here is just like a couple super banks, at least for the interim, are going to start buying up all of these failing banks and attempt to control them. Because, even these large banks, this might be too much for them, absorbing all of this. And then eventually, I think this is just a push for government cryptocurrency. The banks are just not going to be. It's going to be a dam that's beyond capacity. They're not going to be able to cover all the customers, all the amounts that are in there, and it's going to end up being a problem.
Whore.
Liar whore. These banks are all liar whores.
Liar whore, and you know it.
Liar whore banks. So monetary policymakers concluded that the instability in the financial system warrants a recession forecast for the end of the year, followed by a predicted recovery over the course of the subsequent 2 years. If banking and financial conditions and their effects on the macroeconomic conditions were to deteriorate more than assumed in the baseline, then the risks around the baseline will be skewed to the downside for both economic activity and inflation, particularly because historical recessions related to financial market problems tend to be more severe and persistent than average recessions, minutes from a recent Federal Reserve meeting said. So we went a little backward here because that was the second happening. This was the first one, and this was focusing on J.P. Morgan Chase, the nation's largest bank, acquires First Republic after government takeover. So J.P. Morgan Chase assumed control of his First Republic Bank on Monday after the latter company collapsed due to turmoil in the financial sector. First Republic Bank, headquartered in San Francisco, California, caters mainly to wealthy clients with account balances above the $250,000 deposit threshold, backed by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC. The company saw customers withdraw their funds in recent weeks as the recent implosions of Silicon Valley Bank, that was at SVB, and Signature Bank rattled account holders, prompting FDIC officials to secure insured and uninsured deposits at the two failed companies to decrease the risk of bank runs at other institutions. JP Morgan Chase, already the largest bank in the United States and the largest bank in the world by market capitalization, will acquire all of the $103.9 billion in deposits and substantially all of the $229.1 billion in assets maintained by First Republic Bank, according to a statement from the FDIC, which said, the resolution of First Republic Bank involved a highly competitive bidding process. The offices controlled by First Republic Bank will open on Monday as branches of JP Morgan Chase, where depositors can continue conducting business. Our government invited us and others to step up, and we did, JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon said in the statement. Our financial strength, capabilities, and business model allowed us to develop a bid to execute the transaction in a way to minimize costs of the deposit insurance fund. This acquisition modestly benefits our company overall. It's accretive to shareholders. It helps further advance our wealth strategy, and it is complementary to our existing franchise. FDIC officials agreed to a loss share agreement with respect to single-family residential mortgages and commercial loans, while JP Morgan Chase will not assume First Republic Bank corporate debt or preferred stock. The Deposit Insurance Fund, which the FDIC finances with bank fees and uses to cover insured deposits after the collapse of financial institutions, will lose $13 billion as a result of the First Republic Bank implosion, adding to the nearly $20 billion decrease. We've got a election. 32% people say Biden unfit to serve in a new poll. Should be a hell of a lot more than 32%. Who are the other 60% that think he's hanging in there? And the failures of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. The FDIC takeover and JP Morgan Chase acquisition comes days after the first quarter earnings report for First Republic Bank showed that deposits at the company had decreased from $176 billion on December 31st to $104 billion on March 31st. The latter amount of deposits included a $30 billion loan provided by large financial institutions such as Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and Citigroup, as well as JP Morgan Chase, a deal the federal government enabled to maintain the solvency of First Republic Bank. Silicon Valley Bank was acquired by First Citizens Bank at the end of last month. The company purchased $72 billion of Silicon Valley Bank's assets at a discount of $16.5 billion, while $90 billion remain with the FDIC. New York Community Bank Corp. Meanwhile acquired Signature Bank for more than $38 billion. Officials at the Federal Reserve said during a meeting last month that the turmoil in the financial system, which started with Silicon Valley Bank, warrants a recession forecast for the end of the year, according to minutes released by the Federal Open Market Committee and the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. So look for more destability in the banking system. And I had read, as I'm trying to think of something here while I'm talking to there was something about the government considering not allowing people to pull money out and to stop this from happening, right? So it's like when the Robinhood app stopped trading during the GameStop fiasco. You couldn't sell, you couldn't buy, you couldn't do anything. There was a freeze put on while they tried to fix the chaos of all of it. And the government, the federal government, was considering the same thing with banks and their customers. So if I had read that correctly, that I don't know if they're implementing it, but they were considering it, putting a freeze on people being able to completely close their accounts. And just wipe another bank out. So they're trying to see if they can create some stability that way, and that's concerning because now it's even more so the government getting directly involved in your money and saying, well, you can't pull it out of this bank. You're here for the ride now. You can't get off this ride, and that's a scary process because they're directly controlling your money by making a move like that. You still have access to it, but you can't pull out and get somewhere safer with it, or what you believe could be somewhere safer. So, an interesting situation. Look for more instability in the banks, and we'll keep up with that as the weeks come on, because the chaos with the banks isn't over yet, and I wonder if we'll end up with a cryptocurrency like China is implementing as the newest thing. So, here was an interesting story that I came up with here. Just as a little side note, we'll take a break from the craziness. We've still got the Russia, the attack on the Kremlin by drones in an alleged attempt to kill Vladimir Putin. But Fox News here: high schoolers allegedly gang up on an assistant principal, pummel her so hard that she's rushed to the hospital. A school administrator in a Houston suburb was allegedly beaten on the ground by students, a witness says. Students at a public high school in Texas allegedly formed a mob and attacked an assistant principal, landing her in the hospital with head injuries. 3 or 4 other kids jumped in on her, just pummeled her to the ground, and they started kicking her and pulling her hair, a teacher at Westfield High School in Spring, Texas, recounted to Click 2 Houston under the condition of anonymity. She loves those kids. Not anymore, she doesn't. She is the nicest person, and she's the best administrator that we have at Westfield High School. The assistant principal, who has not been identified, was reportedly attacked by a group of students on Thursday at the school's 9th grade center. Westfield High is located about 20 miles north of Houston. The family of the assistant principal said the woman was rushed to a hospital following the attack and was left unable to speak. The father of the victim said the family is unsure how long she will remain in the hospital and noted she is suffering from serious head wounds. It broke my heart. It makes me want to cry, the unidentified teacher who is speaking out about the attack said. The superintendent of school district released a statement last week confirming a staffer at Westfield had been transported to a hospital following an altercation that occurred between multiple students at Westfield High School's 9th grade center. School administrators were able to intervene and stop the fighting quickly, not quick enough to stop the head wound. As a result of the incident, a staff member was transported to a nearby hospital for treatment. That staff member was treated and released the same evening, a school district official said in a statement provided to Fox News Digital on Monday. We are currently conducting a full investigation of all students involved, some of whom have already been identified for disciplinary action. We take these issues very seriously, as the safety of our students and staff is our highest priority. There will be no tolerance for any altercations or disruptions to learning. The school district previously said in a comment to local media that both school administrators and police officers helped stop the fighting. The teacher who spoke to Click 2 Houston, however, said the school district statement is not true, arguing teachers do not feel safe and that there are only 2 police officers for the entire campus. When you call for help to the front office, nobody ever shows up, she said. We don't feel safe. Faculty don't feel safe. If the parents knew how unsafe the inside of the school is, they would be very upset. And this is really interesting because we here at the Relief Valve Podcast have obtained exclusive audio from another attack that just happened a very short time after this incident. Here's some of that now.
And now the severe beating of a high school janitor.
Mop, 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 all day long. Mop, 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 while I sing that song. Gonna wash that floor, gonna make it shine. Gonna take off the spray paint with turpentine. Hey! Don't walk there, I just mopped! Hey! Get off of me! That's one bucket! Ah! Let go of my diaper!
Sad event happening at that high school, and an old classic there too for all of you remember. That's Adam Sandler with the severe beating of a high school janitor, and our thoughts and prayers go out to that high school janitor. I wanted to add that story just so I could play that, because I was remembering some of his skits the other day and talking to a buddy at work about him, and it was some hilarious stuff. So I figured I'd add that in. So just all the staff being attacked over there at that high school. Okay, so moving on here. Trying to get the sleep out of my eyes. There we go. Russia blames the U.S. for an alleged assassination attempt on Putin. So this is American Military News reporting. So as you've probably heard at this point this week, there was like a pair of drones were sent to the Kremlin. One ended up being shot down, it looked like, and hit the spire of the top of the Kremlin. And another one rammed into a wall. They had explosives on them. And of course, there's been a whole bunch of discussion that were these things really strong enough to get into like a window or blow up a wall where Putin was, and then allegedly he wasn't even at the Kremlin, so the entire action was a waste. So, at first Ukraine was blamed, and then they claimed that Russia did this as their own kind of deep fake. They attacked themselves and blamed it on others, and now they're blaming the United States. So on Thursday, Russia blamed the United States for the alleged assassination attempt on President Vladimir Putin, claiming that the Biden administration was behind the terrorist act. Dmitry Peskov, spokesman for Putin, told reporters that the U.S. was responsible for the drone attack on the Kremlin this week, according to the New York Times. We know well the decisions about such actions and such terrorist acts are made not in Kyiv, but in Washington, Peskov said. Kyiv then does what it's told. So basically they're saying in a roundabout way that America told them to do it or was aware of it, and then Ukraine carried out the attack. Washington must clearly understand that we know it, he added. White House spokesman John Kirby pushed back on Peskov's assertions during an appearance on MSNBC's Morning Joe. Peskov is just lying there, pure and simple, like all of your administration, asshole. Kirby said, I can assure you that there was no involvement by the United States in this. Whatever it was, it didn't involve us. I don't know what it was. I have no idea. What are we talking about? Russian officials initially claimed Ukraine tried to assassinate Putin with 2 drones in the middle of the night on Wednesday. Video of the alleged assassination attempt circulated on Twitter. So for our visual viewers here, here's some of the attack here. You see the Kremlin? First drone comes in. Hits the tower where the spire where the Russian flag is, and that's just one. There were 2. You didn't get to see the other one. So that's all they have on that. So now we've got the back and forth going on, and then allegedly that Vladimir Putin wasn't even there. So for the fighting continuing in Ukraine here, the feared Wagner group boss threatens to pull out of Bakhmut and slams the Russian military. In a sharp escalation of the rivalry between Russia's desperate military forces in Ukraine, the head of the Wagner mercenary group announced Friday that he would withdraw his fighters from the still raging battle for Bakhmut over a lack of ammunition. Yevgeny Prigozhin. Probably not, I'm not saying that right. Released a statement and video on his Telegram channel. Mercenary groups have Telegram channels? Demanding that Valery Gerasimov, chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, sign an order indicating when the military would replace Wagner forces in Bakhmut, the eastern Ukrainian city that Russia has been trying to seize since last year. He said he would withdraw his forces on May 10th. I'm withdrawing Wagner PMC, private military company units from Bakhmut, because in the absence of ammunition, they are doomed to senseless death! Prigozhin said. Wearing camouflage and a helmet and automatic weapon slung over his shoulder, he stood with dozens of masked Wagner fighters, some wearing full-face skull masks. Prigozhin did not mention where the video was recorded, but it appeared to be somewhere in Russian-occupied eastern Ukraine. The bitter public recriminations are just the latest in a long-simmering power struggle between Russia's battlefield leaders and highlight the difficulties the country faces in increasing military production as it braces for an unexpected Ukrainian counteroffensive in the coming weeks. Prigozhin said his forces had no choice but to retreat, to retreat to rear bases to lick their wounds, though it remains to be seen if he will indeed order a withdrawal, a move that would be catastrophic for Russia's long and bloody campaign to take Bakhmut and would likely tarnish the reputation of Prigozhin, a well-connected oligarch who made a fortune through state contracts before founding the mercenary group. Whoever has criticisms, you're welcome to come to Bakhmut and stand with weapons in your hands instead of our killed comrades. Prigozhin said. What the fuck? I don't know. While acknowledging the technical need for a military order for Wagner's withdrawal, pro-Kremlin analyst Sergei Markov predicted that Wagner would not pull out May 10th because of the time required for such a handover. If Prigozhin were to follow through, Markov said he would face arrest and the potential destruction of Wagner, his formidable private army that has helped extend Russia's influence across Africa and the Middle East, and whose fighters are now central to the Kremlin's war effort in Ukraine. Withdrawing would be a great mistake, but a lot of mistakes have been made, Markov said in an interview. I imagine the Ministry of Defense will team up with the Ministry of Magic and would be quite happy if the Wagner Group disappeared. Then the resources of the Wagner Group would be taken by someone else, and by someone else I mean us. Overnight, Prigozhin's, is it Prigozhin's? It's probably Prigozhin's. Press service posted an extraordinary video on Telegram in which he stood next to the bodies of dozens of Wagner fighters killed in Bakhmut, then launched into a furious, obscenity-laden tirade accusing Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Gerasimov of supplying his forces with only 30% of the ammunition they need. This is fucking bullshit! Prigozhin's main accusation was that military officials jealous of Wagner's battlefield successes were intentionally depriving the group of ammunition to prevent it from conquering the city before Russia's symbolically important Victory Day on May 9th, commemorating the Soviet Union's role in defeating Nazi Germany in World War II. His statement Friday went further, asserting that Wagner was getting only 10% of required ammunition, not 30%. Prigozhin vowed to make sure that Shoigu and Gerasimov would bear responsibility for tens of thousands of men who needlessly killed and wounded in what he called a heavy, merciless, bloody war. Their unprofessionalism is destroying tens of thousands of Russian guys. This is unforgivable, he said. Prigozhin's outburst, take a shot every time we say Prigozhin, may also be an effort to shift the blame for Wagner's failure to seize Bakhmut before Victory Day, which would have given President Vladimir Putin something to celebrate in his speech from Red Square. Wagner has been battling to seize Bakhmut since last summer, as its losses have piled up. Prigozhin's open struggle with Russian military leaders has intensified. Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, a Putin ally, defended Prigozhin on Friday in comments on Telegram, saying he deserves respect for the invaluable contribution of Wagner forces in eastern Ukraine. Kadyrov also said his fighters were ready to move in and take the city if Wagner pulls out of Bakhmut. Markov said Prigozhin, you should be drunk by now, has become so popular that it's difficult for anyone to criticize him. Of course, the defense ministry is quite jealous of Yevgeny Prigozhin, Yankee. And of course, they don't like the success story of Wagner, Markov said, but he discounted the possibility of a plot to starve Wagner of shells. I think the Russian army leaders want to keep reserves in the face of coming attacks from the Ukrainian army, so they're not giving enough shells not only to Wagner, but also to other units of the military. Prigozhin's statement also painted a picture of chaos and miscommunication on the battlefield, claiming that Russian troops that were supposed to support Wagner's flanks in Bakhmut were ineffective and developed in lower numbers than officially claimed. Instead of tens of thousands, there are tens and seldom hundreds of fighters, he said. According to Western intelligence estimates, Wagner deployed about 50,000 fighters in Ukraine, many of them prisoners who were offered pardons in exchange for taking up arms. Want to get out of jail? Here's a gun. Go fight. U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said Monday that nearly half of the estimated 20,000 Russian forces killed since December were Wagner fighters struggling to take Bakhmut. Prigozhin has shared videos of dead Wagner fighters before on Telegram, but his open rage and his snarling vitriol toward Russian military officials was highly unusual. I've had enough! We're leaving! I'm sick of this! Look at my boots! They're filthy! These are $500 boots, and they're ruined, and you're not sending us what we need, and I don't want to do this anymore. It's cold, and I'm hungry. So the Wagner group is pulling out, and go fuck yourselves. You're such a tough fucking private army. Shut the fuck up and fight. You got a job to do. Do it. Stop whining. Okay. I imagine that's what Putin said to Prigozhin, whatever the fuck his name was. I said it 50 times. I should know it by now, right? So here we go. Let's get to this big story that happened here. And this was the man that ended up being, the black man that ended up being choked out on the subway train in New York. So, of course, it was a military veteran. They say veteran. They said the guy's like 24. Aren't you a vet if you've been in there for like a long time? Not when you enlisted 6 years ago? I don't know. It's their deal. That's how they handle it. But anyway, he was a service member. He was a Marine. This homeless guy that would dance on the subway and go for cash or just flip out and be an insane person was having another episode and threatening people. And then he ended up getting him in a chokehold in order to subdue him. But the guy ended up passing away from it. So let's get into this a little bit here. Man who says he was assaulted by Jordan Neely. Jordan Neely is the black guy that was the crazy homeless person. Says Marine vet shouldn't be punished. New York announces change to new gun laws. I can only imagine what the fuck they're doing. I mean, you can't have any at all now. Shouldn't be punished. A man who said he was previously assaulted by Jordan Neely is speaking out about his experience in the wake of the untimely death of the 30-year-old. Neely died last week after a U.S. Marine veteran named Daniel Penny and at least 2 others restrained Neely following alleged threats and an erratic, hostile behavior on a New York City subway train. According to video, Penny held Neely down on a chokehold while waiting for authorities. Neely's death has been ruled a homicide. He should have been in some rehab center, Philemon Castillo Baltazar said of Neely, speaking to the New York Daily News. Baltazar said he was assaulted by Neely while he was waiting for a train in Greenwich Village back in 2019. He says he was approached by Neely out of nowhere and punched in the head. I felt a punch in my head. He didn't say anything, he just hit me. He hit me above my right eye, Baltazar said. The assault victim added that Penny shouldn't be punished for his actions. As highlighted by Daily Wire, Neely has a lengthy record of arrests stemming from trespassing to felony assault and was struggling with mental health. In 2021, for example, Neely punched a 67-year-old woman in the face, landing him in a program for 15 months. According to witness testimony, Neely boarded the F train on Monday and began screaming at passengers, telling them, "I'll hurt anyone on this train," and saying he was ready to die. Penny at some point moved in to restrain Neely, taking him to the ground and placing him in a chokehold. Video of the incident shows Neely kicking his legs and attempting to get out of the chokehold, as at least 2 other passengers jump in to help restrain the 30-year-old. One of the other people that helped was a black man holding Neely's legs down. Numerous people on the subway train, including one of the men helping to restrain Neely, can be heard asking for the police. Penny on Friday released a statement through his attorneys at the Razor and Kenneth PC law firm. "We would first like to express on behalf of Daniel Penny our condolences to those close to Mr. Neely," the statement said. Mr. Neely had a documented history of violent and erratic behavior, the apparent result of ongoing and untreated mental illness. When Mr. Neely began aggressively threatening Daniel Penny and other passengers, Daniel, with the help of others, acted to protect themselves until help arrived. Daniel never intended to harm Mr. Neely and could not have foreseen his untimely death. For too long, those suffering from mental illness have been treated with indifference, the statement added. We hope that out of this awful tragedy will come a new commitment to our elected officials to address the mental health crisis on our streets and subways. And that's true. There ended up being this, just of course, this outcry from AOC and all the rest of the left, complaining about this act. Oh, another white guy kills a black guy, and completely ignoring this guy's criminal record, people he's hurt. Others have claimed that he had pushed them onto subway tracks at one point and had been assaulted by him in various other situations. One where he had allegedly kidnapped a young child. I don't know if he removed. I don't have enough information on it. It was an accusation. My assumption would be it was like a family on a train, and he yanked the little girl, or I think it was a girl, away from the family. So that was kind of an attempted kidnapping thing, and then the girl was able to get back to her family. That's an assumption on my part. I don't have enough information, but I remember I was watching Tim Pool's podcast, and one woman from some shit left-wing show was talking about, or it might have been Shapiro, I can't remember, but she was talking about, this shouldn't have happened to him. He doesn't deserve that. And she said she remembered a homeless guy ended up like hitting her or doing something to her, and or screaming and doing something to her. And, she was just like, I didn't want anything bad to happen to him. I didn't want to take I just wanted to get away. I just wanted to move away from him. But I didn't want him to be hurt. I didn't want to do anything to him. So these people are so complacent, these radical left who will attack you and take your rights away. But when they have a crazy a homeless person physically assault them, they just go, oh, well, I don't want anything bad to happen to them. It's fine. I don't mind being smacked or punched on the subway. It's fine. There's one video, Shapiro played it on his show. They're on the it's a group of people on the train. Somebody's recording. No one ever does anything. They just record. And there's a crazy black woman. She's walking back and forth, pacing, swearing. She sits down next to two other women. One's a white woman, one's an Asian woman. And she's screaming again. The Asian woman very slowly and subtly kind of shifts over away from all of them and then calmly gets up and walks away. The white woman is now there stuck alone. She tries to do the same thing, and the crazy black woman grabs a chunk of her hair in her hand and holds her there while she's still screaming and carrying on. And the white girl's going, "Help me, help me, help me." She said it like 3 times to whoever, the people on the train. No one moves or does anything. The other asshole is still recording this whole thing. No one does anything. It's a dangerous place to be riding the subway in New York. People are just trying to get from point A to point B. They're going to their job. They're going out shopping. They're going to do something, whatever it is. And you have this expectation of being able to do these things safely and being left alone. And these people can't do that because these radical left-wing nutters are all over the place attacking, assaulting, and harassing people. So I don't have any sympathy for Neely. And this Marine vet is a hero as far as I'm concerned. They've been trying to consider it vigilantism and, kind of like Batman-esque of taking this action. And I say if your shitbag Democratic representatives aren't going to do anything, because they're allied with the radical left, so they don't care that innocent tax-paying members are attacked. The police aren't going to do anything because their hands are tied by those lawmakers. So, and then we're not supposed to protect ourselves because the thought process is, well, you know better. The crazy person doesn't know better. So you should be the adult and the bigger person and just let them hit you and not do anything. It's the crazy person that doesn't know what they're doing. Therefore, they should be allowed to get away with all of this shit because, they're stupid. They're out of their goddamn mind. Isn't it kind of cute? Like, no. People need to stick up for themselves. No one should be putting their hands on you without your permission. You shouldn't be hit by anyone. And if you do, you hit back or you take the appropriate action. So, all right, so I don't want to reiterate too much more of what we've already gone through. So, they've been referencing Bernie Getz, who shot four black teenagers inside a number 2 subway train in 1984, and what he claimed was self-defense, if anybody remembers that story from way back. So an infamous New York City subway vigilante said the U.S. Marine who allegedly killed Jordan Neely by putting him in a chokehold for 15 minutes got to pay. Monday's deadly incident, which involved a white man killing a black homeless man, sparked protests and violent clashes with NYPD this week and drew comparisons to Bernie Getz's shooting of 4 black teenagers in a subway in 1984. Getz claimed that it was self-defense, and he was ultimately acquitted of attempted murder, but fined $5,000 and sentenced to 6 months in prison for illegal weapons possession. He sarcastically said the Marine, identified as 24-year-old Daniel Penny, killed Michael Jackson. He got to pay, according to the New York Post. He's saying that because Neely would dress up as Michael Jackson and dance in the subway car. Here's a still picture right here of the vet, Daniel. He's choking out Neely, whose face is blacked out right here. He's got him in a chokehold. One black man is holding Neely down, and another white or Hispanic man was assisting with the struggle. Getz was referring to Neely's impersonations of Michael Jackson in Times Square and on the subways. I think Michael Jackson, tattoos, piercing, and cocaine all suck equally, he reportedly said when the Post asked him whether he's a fan of the King of Pop. Neely, 30, who was reportedly having a mental breakdown on the F train Monday, witnesses claimed he was yelling and pacing back and forth until Perry put him in a chokehold, which was recorded on cell phone cameras and went viral. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, that shitbag, announced Wednesday that senior experienced prosecutors are investigating Neely's death, which the city's medical examiner determined was a homicide caused by compression of the neck. This is a solemn and serious matter that ended in the tragic loss of Jordan Neely's life, a spokesman for Bragg said in the statement. As part of our rigorous ongoing investigation, we will review the medical examiner's report, assess all available video and photo footage, identify and interview as many witnesses as possible, and obtain additional medical records. The investigation is being handled by senior experienced prosecutors. The 24-year-old military veteran was taken into custody and released, sparking public outrage in Lower Manhattan. In the footage, demonstrators on the platform can be heard chanting, "Fuck Eric Adams," referring to the mayor who said Wednesday that the DA should be given time to conduct his investigation. You notice that all these left-wing pieces of shit don't show up when people are pushed onto the subway tracks, women are assaulted on the subway train, people are attacked, stabbed, or violently hurt on the subway. None of these pieces of shit show up. But when the crazy, out-of-control, mentally ill homeless guy starts acting mentally ill and out of control, and someone does something to protect themselves and others, we've got to have the group of left-wing shitbags to come in and protest the action. It's all bullshit. These people care about the criminal. Are they there trying to help the mentally ill in New York? Are they taking any action to go onto these subways, remove these mentally ill people, and try and get them the treatment they deserve? I mean, Neely and others should all be in a mental institution, getting help, or at the minimum, separated from society and from hurting themselves and hurting others. He apparently went to in and out of a couple facilities. It didn't do a thing for him, and he was back out and being a nutter anyway. So these people should be permanently locked up, or something should be done, because they're a danger to society on a whole. These other people that are on these trains, they're tax-paying citizens who are following the law and minding their business. Why do they deserve to be attacked? Because, well, he's fucking out of his mind and he's homeless. I mean, what do you expect? Well, people expect to be protected. They expect to not have this stupid fucking problem. So not only does it not get solved, but the left-wing garbage come out to protest a shitbag being killed. The NYPD arrested 5 protesters Wednesday, should have arrested them all, on charges ranging from making graffiti to resisting arrest. Obstruction and harassment. Demonstrator Isabel Benzleon, 48. Get a fucking life, asshole. You're 48 and you're in a subway protesting about a crazy guy? Like, get a fucking job. Get a life, you bum. 48. Was charged with assault, reckless endangerment, and other alleged crimes. Fucking loser. Retired NYPD Lieutenant John McCarry, whose podcast, The Finest Unfiltered, focuses on issues facing the city's police department, told Fox News Digital that the incident highlights an overall failure in public safety. You have people commuting on a train who have to deal with mentally ill people who are a danger to themselves and others. Bingo! He said, but there are no cops on the subway platform, even though the NYPD has a larger budget than some countries in the world. He said the Marine veteran was trying to be a good Samaritan who stepped in to help. It's easy for us to sit here when our adrenaline isn't flowing and say that the chokehold is too long, he added. But he was probably terrified. If I let him go, what's going to happen? Here's a picture of Neely doing his Michael Jackson thing. You're homeless, but you can afford to buy Michael Jackson's outfit? The Manhattan DA's office is asking anyone who witnessed the fatal encounter or has information about it to call 212-335-9040. So, there we go. I say that the Marine vet is a vigilante hero, and he isn't the hero. What are they saying, Batman? He isn't the hero we needed. He's the hero we deserve. Something like that. So that's what we need. Good on him. I mean, it's not going to stop the other Looney Tunes because they're already way out of their minds. So they're going to keep doing this anyway. Let's see, where are we at? 49 minutes. Okay. So, but if any of them have half a functioning brain still remaining, maybe it will dissuade them from being, mentally ill shitbags on the subway and just leave people alone. Like, go get help. If you have any functioning thought processes all towards your own mental health, go get help. Don't hang out on the subway and harass taxpayers and attack people and while you hold out a hat looking for change. Just, go get the help that you need. If you have any thought process that can help towards your mental well-being, go get help. Don't be more of a detriment on society, because the Democrat lawmakers don't give a fuck about you. The radical left doesn't give a fuck about you. They'll show up after you're gone or after you're beaten up to protest you after the fact. So they don't give a fuck about you. They're not out there trying to help you. So get help. All right, so let me see, what do we got left here? Because we're coming on to the hour thing. Yeah, this was his criminal record here. Let me see. He'd been arrested more than 40 times before, and a felony attack warrant was still out, which was issued on February 23. So he should have been arrested immediately, not having a mental fit on a subway train. His criminal record includes drug charges, shocker, disorderly conduct, and fair beating. Neely had been living on the streets with a recorded history of mental illness. So it's important to remember that homelessness is against the law in the U.S. People who don't have a place to live or access to the necessities and services are often arrested for loitering, panhandling, trespassing, having open containers in public, urinating in public, and dozens of other crimes. At the time of his death, there was an order out for Neely's arrest because he was accused of assaulting a 67-year-old woman in the East Village in November of 2021. So the guy was a shitbag. Here's another picture right here. Here's the Marine. He's in the brown. Neely is on the ground here. The other black man that was assisting the Marine is holding Neely, but he had passed out unconscious at this point and ended up passing away. So the guy never should have been there. He should have been in jail or in an institution. All right, so let's get through. All right. So we'll try and wrap up here a little bit. So more of the fallout from Anheuser-Busch. The CEO distances Anheuser-Busch from the Bud Light Dylan Mulvaney controversy, not a formal campaign. So he hasn't apologized. He was talking to the stockholders, and he was essentially saying it was a bad move and that they're not doing any of this. So CEO Michel Docré said Bud Light only partnered with Dylan Mulvaney for one post and that it was not an advertising campaign. Let's see what some of the video here has to say. After a shit commercial. Fuck off. I wanted to see if they had the phone call where he's speaking with stockholders. So we'll wait for this shit commercial to stop here. It has to be like 30 seconds long for some garbage product no one wants. All right. Here we go. You gonna fucking play or what?
Situation and put it in the context of our global company. Let me start by clarifying a few facts. This was the result of one camp. It was not made for production or sale to general public. It was one post, not a formal campaign or advertisement. But the Light campaign is easy to drink, easy to enjoy. We should address the situation through the lens of three areas that are very important. Our people, our consumers, and here. Let's start with our people.
Liar, whore,
This situation has impacted our people, and especially our frontline workers. The delivery drivers, sales representatives, our wholesalers, bar owners, and servers. These people are the fabric of our business. They are our neighbors, family members, and friends. They are in every community in America. We've been doing everything we can to support our teams and ensure their safety while we continue to brew, package, and together with our wholesalers, deliver great beer to the market. We are providing direct financial support to the frontline teams that work for us and our wholesalers. As to Bud Light, we have significantly increased our investment behind the brand in the U.S., including tripling our media spend over the summer. Now, let's talk about our consumers. We continue to be committed to the programs and partnerships that we have forged over decades with our consumers and with organizations that represent a wide range of communities where we operate. We work every day to delight our consumers and bring people together. When we do this well, our brands perform.
When we invite Dylan Mulvaney, we fuck up.
Everything we do should be about beer and should promote beer.
Not about
Beer is
tranny.
an essential part of life
No
in meaningful
tranny.
moments,
Just beer.
whether in sports, music, or celebrations. These are moments that bring people together, and this is why I love beer. While beer will always be at the table when important topics are debated, the beer itself should not be the focus of
Important
the
topics like, why did we hire tranny in tank business?
That's what consumers want, and that's what we are focused on delivering. We stand behind the light, and we will continue to invest in the brand to drive it forward. As CEO, I'm accountable for our results, this company, and our shareholders and stakeholders, and my team. Bud Light is very important to our U.S. business, and I will never minimize the situation. However, seeing the context of our global company provides perspective. Over the years, our global footprint has enabled us to successfully navigate different types of challenges, such as temporary ban on beer sales in certain countries and the months-long shutdown of bars and restaurants across the globe.
Okay, so there's that asshole trying to sugarcoat the whole situation and giving them all a bullshit spiel about how they're going to be just fine. So Anheuser-Busch CEO Michel Dockery's addressed a Bud Light controversy on an earnings call with investors Thursday, downplaying the brand's partnership with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney that prompted a boycott from conservatives. Duqueres told investors there is misinformation spreading on social media about the company's team up with Mulvaney. No, there isn't. You gave this freako his own can, and then you did a challenge with them where somebody could win like $15,000. The guy said it on his fucking TikTok. So it might have been a small promotion. It might have been whatever it was, just a small one-time thing. But you did it. You normalized this transgenderism. And this dude is, on TikTok, Dylan, has got, younger teenagers and kids following him. So now you're normalizing the beer drinking with them, and then you're normalizing the transgenderism with them too by joining as a large company. The CEO said Anheuser-Busch is providing direct financial support to the frontline workers impacted by the boycott, naming delivery drivers, sales reps, wholesalers, bar owners, and servers. Duqueres said the brewing giant will triple media spending on advertising for Bud Light over the summer, confirming reports that the company is planning a major marketing push to recover its brand. So, just like the last week, or the week before, I think it was last week, I showed you the video with the Clydesdales, and it's like America. And it showed farmers and on their porch and all of this manly, pro-America shit in order to recover from this shit decision, when they should have just come out and said, this was a mistake, we never should have done this. We shouldn't have any sort of politics in our business model at all, and we're going to go back to providing alcohol to our customers, and we should keep our mouths shut about what's going on. Disney made this mistake, and they've been suffering losses. Now Anheuser-Busch has done it. I know Nike's doing it too, and I encourage everyone to boycott Nike. I'm not buying any Nike products at all, and you shouldn't either, because they had this freako Mulvaney on there as well, showing off the newest women's sports bra. He's a small, flat-chested man, and he's modeling off, dancing like a moron, like he always does, and showing off the new sports bra for women to work out in. Okay? This is the absolute hysteria and ridiculousness of this transgender issue. So, A sign disparaging Bud Light beer has been seen along a country road in Arco, Idaho on April 21st, 2023. It's a sign. It has a Bud Light case on it, and then they've spray painted a big circle with a line down the center to say, boycott of Bud Light. Bud Light remains embroiled in controversy after the brand sent Mulvaney a personalized pack of beer with the influencer's likeness as part of an ad for the company's March Madness contest and to celebrate a year since Mulvaney began identifying as a woman. After the partnership went viral, Anheuser-Busch lost some $5 billion in market value amid calls for a nationwide boycott, and bars and distributors across the country reported significant drops in Bud Light sales. So you'll see that people have been going and looking at the shelves for beer, and the entire section of Bud Light is 100% full, and everybody bought everything else that was all around it. So the backlash led the brand to shake up its marketing team, and Anheuser-Busch CEO Brendan Whitworth published a lengthy statement, fuck off, hoping to tamp down the animosity aimed at Bud Light and his parent company. Duquerez said it was too early to tell how the boycott affected Bud Light sales, but was bullish that Anheuser-Busch will quickly recover from any setback. He reminded investors that the company has navigated global challenges, including temporary bans on beer sales in certain countries and shutdowns of bars and restaurants across the globe during the COVID-19 pandemic. We believe we have the experience, the resources, and the partners to manage this, and our 4-year growth outlook is unchanged, Duquerez said. So, you know, they're going to come back. They're not going to completely crash as a company, but the important part for us as conservatives is to put this message out there, to stay strong with this boycott and put the message out there that we don't tolerate this. We don't tolerate crossing that line and supporting things like this. And you're going to pay a price for it. That's going to be the power of the wallet, the power of us to not have to spend our money for your shit product. So, and this is something that conservatives have kind of, they failed in the past because we have a bad habit of starting strong with a boycott and then having it peter out over a little bit of time. Because you're like, they learned their lesson, and what are we going to do? They're a big fucking company. We're not going to stop them. And then they go, I'm going to go get my beer, or I'm going to go buy what I want because I'm sick of fucking picking up this other shit. So we give up on it. And the lesson that we have to learn is to stick with it and hold their feet to the fire. And you see that it works. You see, when he has to come up with this bullshit spiel, and he has to talk to the investors and try and calm the whole situation down. We let everyone go that had to do with this. We're reeling it all back in. It's going to be good. This summer we're going to be jamming pro-America Anheuser, Bud Light commercials up down everyone's throat and up their fucking asses, and we'll be back to normal sales in no time. And it doesn't matter what fucking bullshit commercial they show or what they do. Stay strong with it. Boycott these companies who take actions like this. Now the left-wing freakos are upset. Left-wing activists, furious at the Bud Light for backing away from Mulvaney, call for a boycott of their own. We're unhappy and we're going to tell you something about it. Let us tuck our penises to the side and put our balls away, and we're going to have a talk with you, mister. It's not Kid Rock and Ted Nugent who should be boycotting Bud Light. It should be us. The brand partnership between Bud Light and social media influencer Dylan Mulvaney appears to have alienated both conservatives and leftists, as members of the latter group criticize the brand for half-heartedly recanting support for the self-described transgender social media star. Several reports indicate that Anheuser-Busch, the parent company of Bud Light, has hemorrhaged sales after executives partnered with Mulvaney, a man who claims to be a woman, and chronicled his purported gender transition on social media. Executives for the beverage firm have offered vague apologies, downplayed the extent of the campaign, and even hired veteran Republican lobbyists in various attempts to win back disgruntled conservatives. The superficial attempts to back away from Mulvaney, on the other hand, appear to have angered members of the LGBTQRSTUVWXY and Z movement, who are now demanding that Anheuser-Busch support the ideology or face another boycott effort from the other side of the political spectrum. Jay Brown, a senior vice president in the Human Rights Campaign, wrote a letter to Anheuser-Busch last week asking the firm to release a statement explicitly supporting Mulvaney and to implement transgender inclusion training for executives. In this moment, it is absolutely critical for Anheuser-Busch to stand in solidarity with Dylan and the trans community, the document said, according to a report from The Hill. However, when faced with the LGBTQ plus minus ampersand divided by sign, as Shapiro likes to say, and transphobic criticism, Anheuser-Busch actions demonstrate a profound lack of fortitude in upholding its values of diversity, equity, inclusion. All bullshit stuff that nobody should be doing. Stacey Lentz, a co-owner of the Stonewall Inn, widely considered the birthplace of the modern LGBTQ political movement, said in an interview with Newsweek that Anheuser-Busch had missed an opportunity to stand by their commitment to the trans community by pandering to and giving into transphobic outcries. She predicted that as a brand, they will be extinct in a few years if they are not fully on the side of equality, citing that left-wing values broadly held by young Americans. No, I think it's the transgender community that's probably going to be extinct in a few years, considering you can't procreate and you're not part of normal human society. Activists hosted a demonstration 2 years ago outside of the Stonewall Inn, during which they poured beverages distributed by Anheuser-Busch into a nearby gutter. The protests were meant to criticize donations the company provided to lawmakers who sought to limit the spread of radical gender theory. Anheuser-Busch responded to the criticism at the time by noting that the company has received a perfect 100% score from the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index for LGBTQ equality. Lentz expressed sympathy for Mulvaney and contended that the influencer, who has received several brand deals from other corporations, was caught in the middle of a horrible firestorm. John Casey, a contributor with The Advocate and public relations executive, meanwhile wrote in an opinion piece for the LGBTQ publication that Anheuser-Busch poured alcohol all over extremist fire rather than rising to the defense of a transgender woman and defending a noble campaign that sought to reflect acceptance. There was nothing noble about it, and the transgender woman is just a dude. Maybe the worst thing the company did was leave Mulvaney all alone. We should all leave Mulvaney all alone, completely and utterly. Twisting in the wind, abandon any kind of defense for him. That is an utterly repugnant reflection of the brand, he commented. It's not Kid Rock and Ted Nugent who should be boycotting Bud Light, it should be us. Well, do whatever makes you happy, you freakos, because we're boycotting all of you. And another funny story here, several of the Daily Wire reporting several Chicago bars now boycotting Bud Light following Dylan Mulvaney's fiasco. The backlash against Anheuser-Busch is now coming from both sides of the political spectrum, since the company teamed up with controversial transgender identifying activist, social media influencer Dylan Mulvaney to advertise his Bud Light products. Several gay bars in Chicago are now boycotting all Anheuser-Busch InBev products over the company's alleged anti-transgender actions and statements in reaction to backlash from those unhappy with the Mulvaney partnership. Two Bears Tavern Group, ooh, welcome to Two Bears, which just, it's me and the owner, and we put you right in the middle like a little bear sandwich, and we just give you one big hug. And it's Two Bears. Which owns 4 gay bars in Chicago, announced in an Instagram post Friday, all Two Bears Tavern Group bars are discontinuing Anheuser-Busch InBev products as a result of the brewers' anti-transgender actions and statements. Two Bears said the brewing company's response shows how little Anheuser-Busch cares about the LGBTQRSTUV community, and in particular transgender people who have been under unrelenting attack in this country. Well, maybe if you hadn't been unrelentingly shoving it all down our throats, you'd be left alone to be mentally ill. Though coming from an opposite viewpoint, the owner of a Florida seafood restaurant chain similarly announced last month that he was removing Bud Light products from his establishments over Anheuser-Busch's actions. I'm disgusted by what you have done and what you're doing, Grill's Seafood Deck and Tiki Bar owner Joe Penovich wrote in an open letter to the corporation via Facebook. Fox Business first reported, "You are the one causing this division and anger in our society. You are responsible for making some of the gay community think Grill's does not welcome them. And you knew exactly what you were doing when you launched this campaign. How could you not? Good old boy beer meets Dylan Mulvaney? Let's see what that does to the country. Nobody's that stupid. This goes way beyond transgenderism. Well, you seem that stupid, sir, for supporting this bullshit." So, fuck the whatever bar and grill in Florida. Don't do business with Joe Penovich, this fucking loser. The Grill, Seafood Deck, and Tiki Bar can go fuck itself. seemingly attempting some damage control, Anheuser-Busch CEO Brendan Whitworth put out a statement last month saying that the corporation never intended to be a part of a discussion that divides people, adding, "We are in the business of bringing people together over a beer." The statement contained no mea culpa and no mention of Mulvaney or the radical transgender ideology he espouses, further upsetting conservative critics. The statement, however, also upset the LGBTQRSTVWXYZ activists who felt the corporation was caving to conservatives. So either way, they're having a hard time. So one final story here, and then we're going to do our follow-up conspiracy theory for we had the Knights Templar. We're going to very briefly get into the Illuminati here, or the start of the Illuminati. So Fox News saying, just kind of jumping back to the war in Ukraine, that Russia evacuates Ukraine region that holds Europe's largest nuclear power plant. Now, if any of you have been seeing people on TikTok or other kind of ex-soldiers or people talking about the military running drills, it's like Arizona or Texas, and they were in full gear for a very particular type of situation, and that situation seemed to be retaking a facility, or in the situation that something should happen with a facility. With one TikToker, I think, saying that it looked like, because he had spoken to some of the people that were there, that it was like, nuclear protocol. So dealing with the situation that has the potential to be a nuclear facility or a nuclear power plant or something similar. Now, we've got, again, an issue with one of the nuclear power plants in Ukraine. Mad panic ensues as Russian forces evacuate the area around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The Russian-backed governor of the Ukrainian region where Europe's largest nuclear plant is located reportedly orders civilian evacuations, including from the city where most plant workers live. Yevgeny Baltysky Yankee, the Moscow-installed governor of Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia province, on Friday ordered civilians to leave 18 Russian-occupied communities, including Enhodar, home to most of the staff at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The move suggested that fighting in the area would intensify. Melitopol Mayor Ivan Fedorov, meanwhile, said Russia prompted a mad panic from the city near the contested plant. Thousands of cars departed, causing 5-hour traffic delays, the BBC reported. International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi has spent months trying to persuade Russian and Ukrainian officials to establish a security zone around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to prevent the war from causing a radiation leak. Grossi said the evacuation of civilians suggested a further escalation. Here's a picture here of some of the plant and armed guards there. The general situation in the area near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, take a shot every time we say Zaporizhzhia, is becoming increasingly unpredictable and potentially dangerous, Grossi warned Saturday. We must act now to prevent the threat of a severe nuclear accident and its associated consequences for the population and the environment. This major nuclear facility must be protected. More than 1,500 people have been evacuated from 2 unspecified cities in the region as of Sunday. Belitsky said the Ukrainian General Staff confirmed the evacuation of Enhodar was underway, the Associated Press reported. Moscow's troops seized the plant soon after invading Ukraine last year, but Ukrainian employees have continued to run it during the occupation, at times under extreme duress. Ukraine has regularly fired at the Russian side of the lines, while Russia has repeatedly shelled Ukrainian-held communities across the Dnieper River. The fighting has intensified as Ukraine prepares to launch a long-promised counteroffensive to reclaim ground taken by Russia. In a Sunday morning update, the Ukrainian military said Russian forces were also evacuating local Russian passport holders to the port city of Bryansk and the town of Promosk, both on the coast of the Sea of Azov, Reuters reported. The first to be evacuated are those who accepted Russian citizenship in the first months of the occupation, the statement from Ukraine's General Staff said. Although none of the plant's 6 reactors are operating because of the war, the station needs a reliable power supply for cooling systems essential to preventing a potentially catastrophic radiation disaster. Analysts have for months pointed to the southern Zaporizhzhia region as one of the possible targets of Ukraine's expected spring counteroffensive, speculating that Kyiv's forces might try to choke off Russia's land corridor to the Crimean Peninsula and split Russian forces in two by pressing onto the Azov Sea coast. Belitsky said Ukraine's forces had intensified attacks on the area in the past several days. So, again, and, we've been hearing on and off throughout this conflict about the issues of concerns with the nuclear reactors there. So this is just one more, and we're going to see what it turns into. Whether there's a disaster there as a result of the fighting, or they manage to hold it together. So all right. So to end the show here, we're going to get into.
He's called me a voice of a generation.
We got to get one shit commercial out of the way.
Compliment.
I knew it was too good to be true when I got through all the other stuff without anything. All right, welcome to the conspiracy theories portion of our show. And last week we were talking about the Knights Templar, and I was remembering my buddy Keith and I got into a little bit of a discussion about this. These are conspiracy theories, so some are absolutely true, like Project MK Ultra and other ones I did. They've actually been proven to be true, whereas these none of us were there, so we don't know 100%, right? So with the Knights Templar in last week's. It was, at least the conspiracy theory regarding that, was the Sangri scrolls or the Dead Sea Scrolls were supposed to be like the actual writings of Jesus, his actual, what he wanted for how the church would continue. And that it was that Mary was chosen to continue the church, not John and the other apostles. So that was part of the conspiracy, and that they had found that. That's why the Templars kind of broke away from the church, and then they were hunted down and persecuted by the church. And then, my buddy Keith, and I love what I do, media, who helps me out with the show. He's great, so we always enjoy our discussions. He said it was actually more, at least as far as the Bible and the history goes, that the Templar had set up a more efficient of a banking system and a way of growing as their own kind of empire that was rivaling the church, and the church was very jealous of this, and it was another reason that they called them heretics and demon worshippers and hunted them down and removed them. So you've got two schools of thought there, and it's up to you. Which one do you think is accurate, and which one do you think it could have been? Either way, it's all pretty interesting stuff, I think. So, in Dan Brown's books, again, this is where I learned some of it anyway, that there was an original group of Illuminati, and it goes back to ancient Rome, and it was Galileo. So in Dan Brown's books, Galileo Galilei is mentioned as one of the Illuminati, a precursor, the perfect symbol of the supremacy of scientific ideals over religious obscurantism. Galileo Galilei lived before the birth of the Illuminati and never wrote the Diagramma Veritas, according to these assholes. I don't necessarily believe that. But Galileo was a scientist who, among other things, discovered the proudly asserted that the Earth was revolving around the sun. At the time, this was an unacceptable theory for everyone, especially for the Roman Catholic Church. Therefore, the Inquisition, through a long trial, sentenced Galileo, using his last name, to imprisonment for life and abjuration. So he was, under normal circumstances, the church would have burned him at the stake or, taken some sort of severe action against him. But because Galileo was such a popular person and loved by the people, the church decided it was too dangerous to kill him or to take more serious action. So he was locked up within the Vatican, but given his own room and his own, circumstances, and he was still living quite well despite his detainment. And then he was writing, and now I can't remember the name of it. And of course they don't put it here because this is just some shit site. They don't have all the information. But he continued to write the scientific journal that he put out there. And he hid, basically it was science, which of course was an affront to God. So you couldn't talk about, the Earth didn't revolve around the sun on its own. The galaxy didn't all move in their proper positions around the sun. It was God that made everything function, right? It was God that made the trees grow. It was God that made the planets move. And, Galileo was saying, well, this is the science behind everything. So that was heresy to say that it was something other than God. So that's why he was locked up, but he was too important to kill. And he said he still wanted to communicate with the people in Rome and the surrounding areas. He still wanted, he was an author as well. He used to write all of these things and what he learned and share it with the public. So he wanted to continue to do that. So they gave him permission to continue writing the letters, but he had to hide the scientific information and information about the Illuminati being at that time the illuminated ones. So like-minded people who had a scientific forethought, who were looking at the science part, not a cabal of a group that wanted to take over the world. It was just their little bit of their own little secret society in order to communicate with each other and talk about things that weren't allowed by the church. So he submitted this letter and he hid scientific facts, equations, and other stuff within the writings of it. And anyone that was a follower of his or a part of this group would have either kind of a deciphering key or would have knowledge of how to decipher what Galileo put in the writings in order to get the hidden message inside the writings and continue kind of that line of communication between him and the other like-minded people. So that was the original of the Illuminati. Now, eventually, I think they had to be they ended up being exiled. They had to flee Europe and kind of move off into other areas. And then it turns into more of the Illuminati that we all know, or at least we've all heard of, where they become this underground, in the dark corner group that switched their focus from just communicating as scientists and like-minded fellows to this dark group that's trying to take over the world. So we'll get into that a little bit more in next week's show as to what they try to put the official Illuminati as a group started in secret society founded in 1776 in Ingolstadt, Germany by Johann Adam. But we'll get into that. But I wanted to talk about what, in my opinion, again, I don't have enough information for this, but is the original founders were Galileo and other like-minded prominent figures in Rome at that time. And it was all communicating. That original Illuminati was just almost like being rebels, right? Communicating on the down low to other people about things that you weren't allowed to talk about, or the church would come after you and very likely violently come after you for doing. So there's a lot between the original, much more innocent Illuminati that you find in this time with Galileo that I just read to you, and then its subsequent change over the years to either being kind of reinvented or reborn as this alleged darker group that comes up to start infiltrating other sources, and of course after they were disbanded or kind of stopped, as we'll read on in some of those other parts, they allegedly ended up infiltrating the Freemasons. Is where the Illuminati ended up, and they just kind of took off their Illuminati patch and all became Freemasons, and now they all exist within the Freemasonry as a secret society within a secret society. So, this portion is the ones that we can't prove 100%. So there's conspiracy theories. If we have ones that are 100% truth, on this part of the show, I'm going to let you know that. And the other ones where it's not really possible for us to prove that unless an Illuminati wants to come on the show, and then he wouldn't, and let me interview him, and then that he wouldn't be great as a secret society member if he did that. So I really don't see that happening. But, we can talk with these other ones that are just interesting information. All right, so we're coming to the end of the show here. We've already gone on for too long, I'm sure. Hour and 24 minutes. So we're on YouTube and Rumble. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the show if you have questions or you want to weigh in about some of the topics that we talked about. We're also expanding into Rumble. We're getting more followers on Rumble as well. And then if I have any issues with YouTube, I can direct live stream to Rumble. And eventually, that's where I want to make my way. As we grow the show and we accomplish more, I want to make my way and be exclusive on Rumble like, Crowder and Russell Brand and the others, because you end up being censored on YouTube and you never know what's going to happen. So please like, subscribe, follow the show, tell your friends and family about it if you enjoyed it, and let's build up that viewer base. And for the audio portion of the show, it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and several other smaller brands as well, because it branches out to a whole bunch of other ones. If you want to support the show, the PayPal is up right now. I've been doing my homework on other providers. Patreon is a little more of a left-wing leaning one, so I'm looking at locals right now, and I'm going through their information to set up the locals page, and I'll be able to provide a little more convenient ability for people to donate to the show without specifically using PayPal. But for right now, I've got the PayPal. Click the link on support the show on the audio portion, or you'll see the PayPal icon on YouTube and Rumble. You can hit that when you're watching the show if you'd like to help and donate. That'll help me to expand the show, provide more content, and do more shows. Right now I've had to cut back because I pay for everything out of pocket. And if I have help from the viewers and all of you that are listening and enjoy the show, that'll help me start to slowly take it to the next level and expand how much time I have to use. Because it's free to upload on YouTube and Rumble, but when I do the audio, that's not free. I pay a third party to upload that everywhere that I want it to go. So our supporters, I Love What I Do Media, Keith over there, he can help you set up your online business. He's a great guy. He's helped me with all of the graphics for the show and even further future stuff that we're incorporating into it. So he's really helpful. Look at ilovewhatidomedia.com. And Buzzsprout is our affiliate sponsor. They're the one I use to submit all of our audio. You can click their link on the sponsors page. And we'll get a little bit of a kickback in something for anyone that joins. If you've thought about doing your own podcast and you just want to get your voice out there, Buzzsprout, look, my audio is dying here. And you want to get your voice out there as well for whatever topics are important for you, Buzzsprout can help you do that. Their customer service is great. They usually answer you within an hour. Maybe even less if you get them during peak times. I've never had an issue that they haven't been able to resolve for me, so keep that in mind for Buzzsprout as well. That Sunday show, more this week, and we'll be getting into, because I'm behind on the Tucker Carlson stuff, and there's some clips that came out and some video and stuff that's they're trying to use it to attack him, but it's actually pretty funny. So I want to get into some of that, the Tucker Carlson issue, and more of the craziness that'll be happening this week. All right. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next Sunday for the Sunday Shitbag Roundup. All right. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.